Today on the Carolina Business Leaders Podcast, we are joined by former Lieutenant Governor Andre Bauer, the 87th Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina. Andre has led an exciting and dynamic career, not only in politics, but also as a real estate developer, investor, and entrepreneur. From owning furniture stores to investing in speedways, his ventures reflect a spirit of grit and relentless pursuits of excellence. His achievements in business have translated well into success in public service, as he was recently nominated by President Trump to serve as the U.S. Ambassador to Belize. Former Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
So you recently visited Mar-a-Lago. Do you have any cool experience or any cool stories?
I was hoping I'd see the president, and kind of crazy, they announced he was getting ready to walk in. Byron Donald did. He was kind of the MC in it. Mm-hmm. And then they played the music, Eye of the Tiger, got everybody fired up. And then they said, ladies and gentlemen, he's not able to make it in.
Oh.
And I walked outside, and the Beast was there, the motorcade was there. He had just come in. I don't know what diverted him. That was a couple weeks ago. It was on a Friday night, but evidently something came up because he was getting ready to walk through the door, and he got diverted not to, so I didn't get to see him.
I'm sure there's a good reason for that. I mean,
yeah, because it was.
You can only speculate.
and you know, he loves the crowd, and this was his crowd. I mean, it was a Palm Beach crowd, and it was a conservative crowd, and so if he could have made it, he'd have been there.
If you're running a small to mid-sized business, you know there's simply not enough hours in a day to take care of all of your business needs. From managing health insurance to payroll, procurement, advertising, you're going to need some help to get that initial momentum going. That's why I would partner with Quesco. They take care of all the behind-the-scenes administrative and HR work, letting you focus on what truly matters, which is running your business. That's Questo, Quesco. Visit Quesco.net or call your local Quesco representative Thomas Owens at 864-477-0843 to get started today.
Do you have some fun stories of President Trump at Mar-a-Lago outside of this visit?
That was my first visit to ever go in. I've walked by there lots of times. I've actually never been in there. I've met with him a lot of times, but never on his home turf.
Yeah.
Usually it was our home turf. It was somewhere in South Carolina. It was a Carolina football game or Pickens or actually Charlotte Motor Speedway. It was always places like that, Myrtle Beach.
Wow. So how did a guy, just a common guy from Irmo, South Carolina, end up being just around all the big-time politicians in the country, make his way up the ladder, per se?
It's a lot of decades. So my mom goes back and says, I was at South Carolina just trying to make enough to pay my tuition and get through school. And back then they had school newspapers, and I tried out to be a cheerleader. And so 2 years I did that. Then 2 years I was the guy on the microphone. So she says, look, you got confident being in front of the whole student section out there jumping up and screaming. And then after I graduated from school, I moved right back to the neighborhood, same neighborhood my mom lived in where I'd grown up, bought my own house, started hustling. And I had a little company. If you went into anything from an Ibrahim's bookstore to the bookstore at Georgia Tech, to 250-something Walmarts at one time. Wasn't much spread, but I sold a lot of product. And if you walked in, for example, a Walmart, Department 23, that's men's and boys, I had a spinner rack in most of the Southeast stores that sold license plates.
So you were already in Walmart.
So I was selling a bunch of stuff. Well, originally when I started Walmart, they did what they called 70 typing. Okay. So you didn't have to have a vendor number. It was a lot lower key back then. The manager would come meet with you. And eventually I got enough of them that they got me a vendor number.
Wow.
And so my college roommate ended up buying it from me when I became Lieutenant Governor. He still runs it today.
Wow.
It's now under different names called Bob Novelties. But if you walk in there, he's got he sells them everything from the car flags to whatever.
Yeah.
And so, originally I was doing it at a little mom and pop sporting goods stores, because you used to be able to walk in the mall, there'd be 4 or 5 sporting goods stores that were just the local people that had it. And then the big boys kind of pushed them out. But anyway, so from that, I got mad at a homeowners meeting and said we need to get somebody to run against the sitting incumbent, and nobody would run.
Of the homeowner association?
Oh. And so I just decided I'd run, and didn't know if I could win or not, but I knew marketing and I knew people, and so...
So your political career started in HOA?
It did. Yeah. Well, it started the conversation, and eventually... I ended up getting sued for being at the homeowners meeting. What they did was they built a low-income housing project on a golf course in the neighborhood we were in, and we were all trying to stop it. And they put a pool, and they put it on the golf course. I said, well, why would anybody try to improve themselves if you make it this nice. And that's the problem with so many well-intended government benefits is the intent may be great, but if you make the system so good that there's no reason to get off the dole, then you and I forever continue to support these programs, and it doesn't give them the opportunity to grow and prosper and create a better opportunity for themselves. It keeps them stagnant. It's not a healthy process. I'm all about for a hand up. Yeah. But this handout stuff, I don't believe that most people, I'm not the only person, I think it's very unhealthy. And so I was opposed to it. I said, look, if you're giving away housing, it needs to be the basic housing. It doesn't need to be on a golf course. It doesn't need to be a pool. Anyway,
so who sued you?
The developers sued us all just to scare us. It's a big money tactic. You do it to the little poor people that don't really have a voice. And the minute you get a lawsuit that says we're suing you for $30 million, everybody runs. And that's what happened. Everybody in the homeowners meeting that was fighting them scrambled, and they all signed the waivers just to get out of the lawsuit because they didn't want to have to go hire a lawyer. Yeah. And so it's everything I'm against. The big one. I think I ended up doing it too. It's been so long.
Right.
But what I did do was I decided I was going to run for office. And so I had a guy that was kind of helping me that was an old friend, actually from when I sold stuff at ball games. I used to sell the scorecards, and he was the guy that printed the scorecards, and I was always one of his top sellers. And he had gone in the newspaper business, and I kind of reached out to him, and he said, yeah, you can win this. And he was the only person that thought so. Yeah. And he said, get your friends to come together. We came to my house, and I was unmarried. I didn't have a wife, didn't have kids. We probably had 100 people show up.
Yeah. And you were young at the time,
I was real young. And so most of my friends didn't have any money, but they had a lot of time. And we were able to harness that time into getting elected. And we ran a masterful campaign because we got to know people, and we knocked on doors, and we did unconventional things. And it was really marketing 101. Yeah. We were marketing a young person that if I had debated him, he'd have made me look not seasoned. I mean, he was a very smart guy. I like him to this day.
The guy you were running against?
He had been in the House for 8 years. He'd been the mayor before that. And actually, President Trump appointed him recently to a big position in the administration. And we've always been friends after that, but he took it a little bit for granted, and I worked as hard as I possibly could, and we pulled a huge upset. And then I got reelected 2 years later, and 3 months later there was a special election for a Senate seat, so I got catapulted pretty quickly into the Senate. And still, it was same deal as before, just outwork your opponent. You may not have the looks, talents, or skills, but hard work will offset a lot of things.
So how old were you when you first ran for SC House?
I got elected at 27. The Senate, I had been 30 for 10 days. And then Lieutenant Governor 33.
Yeah. Wow. So to rear it back in a little bit, before you embarked on that political career and you graduated college, did you consider looking for like other job opportunities, or was it just like,
I never considered getting a job. I really haven't had many jobs in my life. I always wanted the independence of working for myself. I never worked for the money. I worked because I didn't want to have to answer to anybody. And so anytime I made any money, I wasn't one of these people that bought a lot of stuff. I bought assets. And I always bought real estate. And back when I got out of college, I could buy a nice house near Irmo High School in the $30,000. I could buy a little 3-bedroom.
$30,000.
They were 30-something, and they needed work. But they were 3-bedroom, usually 1 bath.
That sounds great.
And you could buy them for 30-something grand. I'd go in there and do the yard work. I'd paint them. I'd clean them up. My granddaddy was a carpenter. He was my hero. Back then, he would come and he'd help me old school. We'd cope molding. Nowadays, they do it with a miter box. But back then, you cut it with anyway. And so he taught me how to doll them up, how to fix stuff. And eventually, I got friends that could come help me do some tile and I'd rent them out for a while, and then when I needed some cash, I'd sell a few, and it became a good system. And so
you're just the ultimate handyman, like turning houses over.
Even when I've had, opportunity to make some money, I always went back to real estate. It was what I knew. And anytime I didn't do the real estate, most of the time, you reminded me of that furniture store. It did well, but I bought that in foreclosure from the bank. That was a weird time. That was 2012, 13. It was when the banks were they were taking a lot of stuff they shouldn't have been taking, quite frankly. People were up to date on their payment, but couldn't pay the debt off. And they would come to them and they'd say, you got to pay it off now. Well, they didn't have the ability to do that. It's really a bad system. But anyway, so I bought I bought boats and all kinds of stuff back then.
And what do you think sparked your interest in real estate outside of your grandfather being a handyman and teaching you those ways?
So when I was at South Carolina, I was paying rent, $250 a month, all included. And my dad said, you need to buy a house. You need to quit renting. And I said, well, how did I do that? He said, get in the paper, da-da-da-da-da, and then what was called an assumable. Okay. So if you wanted to sell me a house, I could just assume your loan. So the first house I bought, I think I had to come up with $5,000, and I was hustling all the time back then. I mean, if anybody that's been to Carolina games, 20 years ago, they remember me being outside the stadium selling stuff.
Really?
And so I would hustle all the time. In 1984, the Gamecocks went 10-1 in regular season. And so when they started out with the Citadel, Georgia, Duke, Pitt, Notre Dame was on the road. All those games, I was out there selling a bumper sticker that said, this is next year. And if you're a Gamecock fan, you remember, wait till next year. Well, in 84, we start off, and we went there and hold through a pass, and we win 10-17 to beat Georgia at home. Huge victory. And I go through the whole games because I was such a fan. The year before, I wasn't old enough to drive. My mom dropped me off to sell peanuts at the stadium at 5 cents a bag, but it got me in the game, so I got to watch the game.
Wow.
And so
Hard work never gets old.
Yeah.
So you were just always hustling at a young age.
Always. Even now, I have so many things going, and it keeps me going.
Yeah.
It keeps me young.
Yeah. What are some of the ventures or real estate developments you're working on now?
So I got a mountain up in Landrum that's a 160-acre tract that they're timbering right now and getting me some roads in. I've moved a house from Cleveland Park there that's getting ready to get a roof put back on it. They're supposed to be doing the foundation if it quits raining. I've got a tiny house, one of those small little tiny log cabins that's getting moved to the property. It was supposed to get done last week, but the rain held it off. That's sitting down at Lake Murray. And then there's a 1902 cabin that Dr. Thomas Earl, that had Earl Street and had the pharmacy right there, the fork in the road at South Main and Augusta. He built that building in 1872. It looks newer than it is because it's got a new facade. If you look at the backside facing like Augusta 20, you'll see it's still brick, and that's from the 1872 build. He was only there about 10 years, and you can go to Greenville Historical, but he became the surgeon for all three railroads. So you can imagine the kind of money you were making at the turn of the century being the surgeon for all three railroads. But he had a tract there. He built his dream home up at the top of that mountain right outside of Landrum. And so that's my biggest project, getting ready to probably build a couple spec homes on some lots I bought years ago. Building one downtown Greenville. I got a tract in Orangeburg that I'm trying to come up with something on now. Still need some ideas.
So you're
there.
all over the state.
Yeah.
All in real estate. Any ventures outside of real estate that you're working on, or all?
Not much. I mean, once in a while I'll dabble in something, but for the most time, I stay in the real estate world.
Okay.
Once in a while, somebody will bring me something. For a year, I worked with some private equity guys here in Greenville that were great. I had a wonderful relationship with them, but I peeled it back at the beginning of this year and went back to I wasn't spending any time on that mountain, and so I've been really focused on that because when I move back downtown, it's going to be double the drive time each way, and I'm up there 3 or 4 times a week.
Right. You think you're a mountain guy or a beach guy?
I think I'm. Neither one of them blow me away. I'd rather look at the views of the mountains, but my kids love the beach, so we did Seaside a couple of weeks ago in the Panhandle, which was fun. But
that's awesome.
South Carolina is very scenic, and it's fun as I go past. From my house to the mountain, I pass the, depends on which way I go, the Poinsett Bridge. And so there's a lot of fun stuff in there. And I actually like looking at the mountains more than the beach.
Well, back to that hard work and your work ethic. Rumor has it that you knocked on every door in the county when you were first running for the South Carolina House. How true is that, and what sparked your interest in being
I
in the
didn't
House?
do the whole county. I did a bunch. I mean, I can't imagine how many I did, and I think they were highly fruitful. It'd be like you ever seen that that guy that sells the window washing online? And he's like amazing. Like he could talk you into it. It's like what's the guy with the pen? If you're willing to put it out there, and you're willing to make enough attempts, you're going to be successful. Period. You may get shot down. It's kind of like dating. It took me 49 years to get married, but eventually somebody will say yes. And so it was knocking on those doors. Not
That's
everybody
right.
wanted to talk to me. Some people didn't want to talk to me. Some people liked my opponent,
Yeah.
which was highly understandable.
Yeah.
But knocking on those doors, and when they didn't answer the door, writing a note saying, sorry, I missed you.
Wow.
Here's my cell phone number if you have any questions.
Really?
I'd like to serve
Yeah.
you in elected office. All that stuff made a difference. And
For sure,
For
yeah.
Memorial Day, I left flags. Actually, for Mother's Day, I left pine tree seedlings from the Forestry Commission in their yard with a sappy note, pun
Oh.
intended. Memorial Day, I
Very
can
good.
remember going back by somebody's house, giving them a flag, and they said, look, I'm watering the tree you left me.
Wow.
And it was marketing 101.
Wow.
It worked. And I was marketing a product, me, and
Yeah.
it made people like you. And so it never really, the first election, it didn't get deep into politics. I mean, I was always conservative. I always thought government had its fingers in too many pies and really ought to handle the fiduciary fundamental things like making sure we had safe roads and bridges, fire and police protection. All those were much more important to me than all this other fluff that so many government agencies continue to do, and I just don't think that's the role of government. But anyway, so that was kind of the door knocking. It was powerful. It was like standing in the carpool line at the elementary schools, which I did.
Yeah.
And the people would come up.
Yeah.
Well, we told a couple people that you'd be on the podcast this week and people in town, and we heard from more than a few that they remember the days when you would be at busy intersections waving at people as they drove by. So
And it looks a
was
little
memorable.
kooky, but
it was memorable.
They said they voted for you
It's
because of it.
it's advertising.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
most people look, if I see somebody running for office, let's say Comptroller General, and I see you standing on the side of the road wanting the job, waving,
Yeah.
and nobody else out hungry for it, I'm gonna vote for you every
That's
time
right.
because
For
I'm gonna
sure.
be like, at least he showed that he had some initiative,
Yeah.
or
That's
he
right.
wanted the job. And in most things, people aren't willing to put it out there. People are, I say, so many people now, I think, don't want to put the effort, time, or energy in. And so I have been very fortunate that hard work allowed me to overcome some obstacles, some of them self-inflicted, but against people that were much more talented than myself, because they didn't want to put the extra work in. Bear Bryant calls it the extra. You
Gotcha.
can Google it; it's worth watching.
I love
So,
it.
so did you envision yourself becoming lieutenant governor 6 years later?
Nope.
Like, did you have an end goal with that?
Nope,
or-
I didn't have any goal in politics. I didn't take a law class. I didn't take a poli-sci class.
Yeah.
My whole thing was I was going to be a businessman, and
Okay.
somewhere along the lines, the politics got in there, and
Yeah.
it kind of got in my blood, and I loved helping people.
Okay.
And so our goal was to provide the best constituent services you could possibly provide. And by the time we checked out a lieutenant governor, I ran all the aging program, Meals on Wheels, senior transportation, nursing home investigations, and we had a session every year during the summer when the legislature, I was called the Silverhead Legislature, and we let the seniors come down and talk about what they wanted to be addressed. And we had the Senior of the Day, and back then you had Lieutenant Governor's Writing Awards, and so back then the Lieutenant Governor had duties. I hate that they changed the role through statute. They changed it. They did a constitutional amendment and make it now where it's just an appointed job that really has no duties. Nothing against the lieutenant governor. They've stripped that, and it really it wastes the job when
Yeah.
you got a talented business person in there right now, for example, that they should give some duties to. I don't know. It bothers me that they did that.
That's crazy. You didn't have a 5 or 10 year plan. You were just running and just see what happens.
It just kind of God sometimes opens doors, and a lot of times I decided to take those opportunities.
Nice. Well, obviously, politicians face a lot of public scrutiny. How do you maintain your composure when you feel like you might be under fire?
I think it's kind of like in athletics or anything else. You evolve into that. You get, if you're going to be in politics, you better have some skin like an alligator. It just, if not, you can get your feelings hurt real quick, and you're not going to be very successful in that job. It just, now more than any time, people can get behind a computer and they say all kinds of mean, nasty stuff. They never have to be there for it. They'd never come up in your face and say it. But it allows a lot of folks to say a lot of stuff that really don't have any juice themselves or haven't done anything. They haven't had to prove
It's
themselves.
terrible, yeah.
So they're coming from a standpoint that's where they flex.
Yeah.
And so
it's just too easy, and they have no credibility.
and that is, it is very easy. And so if you're swayed by stuff like that and you're trying to run for office, you'll be very ineffective.
Do you think you're naturally had that thick skin?
No, I think I developed it over time too. I mean, I think There were days when it got tough to get up and turn the TV on or listen to the news or look at the newspaper or listen to the radio. So it affects, like it bothers my wife way more than it bothers me.
Sure.
Yeah. Understood.
Before we got on the podcast, we talked about your experience with CNN. So how do you best prepare for appearances on live TV like CNN or any other news channels?
I don't really prepare.
Do they give you a script of questions they'll ask?
No.
Really?
No, that was like WWE wrestling, which I'm taking my boys to tonight.
Fun.
Against promising the last time I would never do it again. Everybody knows what the drill before you get there.
Mm-hmm.
When you put 5 on 1, you kind of know the outcome. You may get a punch in there a time or two, but they're going to get the best of you most of the time.
Really?
They were very respectful of me. I always felt like they treated me fair. They put the double whammy on me most of the time, but I knew their perspective. I knew their audience.
Right.
I was there for a certain purpose, and they hired me because they wanted a Trump defender is essentially what they wanted.
Yeah.
This was in 2016, and they wanted a perspective from somebody that would vote for Trump because he was an anomaly. They couldn't figure it out. When they hired me, there were 16 people in the race on the R side.
Oh, so you're at the very beginning. Yeah.
I endorsed Trump. Henry McMaster endorsed him on January 27th of 2016, and I think I was February 16th of 2016. And we were the first 2 in the country that I know of.
Wow.
So I was there early on. And look, I'm not one of these that I'm all in on every. Look, I'm an independent thinker. I don't have to agree with somebody on every issue. What I want is where they come from, where they going, and what do they plan to do. And so independent thinkers are not always going to agree on every issue. But if I think you're there for the right reasons, I think you got a good vision, and I'll overlook some things that I may disagree with you on for the greater good.
With that being said, did you ever find yourself agreeing with the people on CNN?
Sure.
Okay, yeah.
There are a lot of people that I actually like and respect that have a far different viewpoint. Look, if I was raised in rural South Carolina as a black individual versus somebody who was in the suburbs as a white individual, I'd have a vastly different perspective on life, on politics, on the role of government. And it could be geographical, it could be racial, it could be where I went to school, it could be the friends you hung out with or your parents. All that is going to have some bearing on how you look at things and what you think government's role is, an elected official's role. So I don't begrudge them. Actually, Bakari Sellers, who comes from much that background, is the one that recommended to them that I was fair and reasonable and that I'd be a good hire for them.
Okay.
I went back through some old papers the other day, and several minority members on the other side of the aisle endorsed me for re-election lieutenant governor across party lines. I mean, you don't ever see that today.
Yeah, wow.
But I was looking at a mailer I had done, and for example, Senator Darrell Jackson, black minority senator outside of Columbia, he openly endorsed me because he said, "Hey, this guy works with everybody," which I took as a real badge of honor.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty encouraging. Yeah, I just always curious, how do people prepare for the CNN stuff? Because
I think a lot of them do,
and you really just don't. You just kind of go on, and
it's not my thing.
You just have your backbone.
I was never trying to get to another network or get a PR job. It wasn't what I was doing.
And you weren't fighting for TV time, which a lot of people are.
If they called me and wanted me to go on, I was cool with it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't looking for it. I never hired an agent. I wasn't out there. It didn't help me make money. So there was no angle for me. And they finally put me on salary. And so I was there when they needed me. But I wasn't jockeying to get my face on TV anymore because it just wasn't my thing.
Do you think that they provided questions to up the opposing viewpoints?
Well, I know they did. Donna Brazell got caught giving Hillary the questions before.
So they knew how to prep, whereas you did not. I guess
I feel like my prep's my life experience.
Okay.
I don't come from a background where I'm trying to convey something that I'm not. Sometimes I step on my own toe, but I am who I am. I'm a real person. I've made mistakes. I've been very blessed in life, and that's the perspective I come from. I hope people respect that and appreciate that. But if they don't, that falls in their domain of what they have to deal with. With me, I don't let it. Again, it's that alligator skin.
Yeah. So back in 2020, President Trump nominated you to be the ambassador for Belize. What is next for former Lieutenant Governor Andre Bauer?
That was the dream. For years, my dream was to be a United States ambassador, to go serve in another. I've never lived anywhere but South Carolina. So
Really?
I would have liked to have really had the opportunity to go to another country to represent the president, and to really push his agenda because most of it aligns exactly with my politics. And I thought with an executive background, with a legislative background, I've met with a lot of world leaders from Thatcher to Castro. I mean, you name it, I've met with a lot of them because most of the time I would go in Sanford Stead when he couldn't make something. There were different people they'd send, but a lot of times they would send me. And so I had a lot of that, not training's not the right word, but life experiences. So I thought that would really go well. So I actually went to ambassador school for a month and graduated from the Foreign Service Institute, but the Senate never took up the confirmation, so I never got to go.
Did it ever reach the floor?
Nope.
Really?
They never took. There were 25 in our class total. Again, if they knew they weren't going to take them up, they shouldn't have wasted the taxpayers' money.
That's
sending
a
us
month.
to ambassador school because it was expensive. Because they took my whole family to DC for a month.
Wow, that's a lot of
and housed us and fed us, and it just
and none of the 25 they took up. What? That's
none
crazy.
of the politicals.
Right.
They took up the career diplomats. They did not take up the politicals. And so, and gosh, it's sad to see how partisan everything's gotten because I never worked like that when I was in Columbia, ever. I never operated like that. Clearly, I had my beliefs, but I worked with everybody because people looking for help as a senior, they aren't worried about whether you got an R or D in front of their name. A pothole can't tell you whether it cares about if it's an R or D. A kid winning a Lieutenant Governor Writing Award, most of the time they can't tell you about an R or a D. So when somebody called and needed help or they need to get their loved one home because they were stationed overseas and somebody had passed or there was an issue, we never asked somebody who they voted for or how they voted. And so I hate to see how partisan it's gotten now, but such is life.
So it's obviously very divisive at the federal level, at a national scale. Do you think even at like the more local level, it's very more divisive?
I've heard that Columbia has changed too. I haven't. I one of my roles as lieutenant governor was to preside over the South Carolina Senate, and I can remember these folks that every single week that had been in public office and then stepped down or gotten beaten would come back and I'd say, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the Honorable so-and-so. We're so glad to have you back. Thank you for your years of service. And I thought, there's nothing wrong with coming back, but I'm not going to be back here all the time. This has been a part of my life, but it's not my defining part of my life. So I've been back twice. When the governor got sworn in, I wanted my children, because we homeschool them, I wanted them to see what it was like. So I took them back for a swearing-in ceremony of a governor, and then I had to go. The speaker put me on a commission that allocates where we spend some of our state's tax dollars to fix some of the road infrastructure projects we have in the state. So I went back for that. I actually went down there to a meeting last week for that, but everybody's out of session now. But I haven't gone back in the State House and shaken hands and had them recognize me, and I've been gone 15 years.
Wow.
I just thought you need to let it go and move on.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. So when you reflect on your career, all the ups and downs, what would you say are the biggest challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
That's a great question. I don't know what the biggest challenge is. I mean, I probably created the biggest problems because I was followed, watched. I had a lot of races, and from 26 to 40, I held public office, and I never got caught doing something inappropriately. I tried to really watch everything I did, but just a few little missteps defined me giving up 14 years of my life, some of your best income producing years. I messed up just by speeding and trying to get somewhere on time. They stripped me of the details, so I was the only lieutenant governor ever not to have security details. So I was running all over the state. Back then you didn't have GPS. Driving with my knee, trying to read a road map, trying to make it to every event under the sun. And yes, I was guilty of it. And yes, they let me go. And it was fully accept responsibility. But what I try to convey is those missteps have left a legacy so that I hate it for my kids more than anything, because I gave 16 years of my life with a very meager salary, and I worked what was a part-time job. I took on running an agency that was $40 million, being on the hook for that, appearing before Congress multiple times. I made it a full-time job. It's all I did. I didn't take the reimbursements for my mileage. When I flew myself, when I stayed in a hotel, I ate it all. When the state had budget cuts and we didn't have enough to pay the lieutenant governor, I ate it all. Didn't take a pay. And so the fact that I did all that, and I have a legacy that when you Google me, he got pulled for speeding. It bothers me that I did that. My mess up, and you can't fix that part of my legacy. It's not, hey, he's one of the hardest guys to ever hold the job. Hey, he won with numbers that nobody ever dreamed of. He was for 8 years. For 8 years, I was the youngest lieutenant governor of the United States.
Wow.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
think about that. And all they got on me is I was speeding.
Right. Yeah.
But that, because an opponent who's a friend of mine had millions of dollars, they ran commercial after commercial after commercial, and it just drilled that message in, and it's hard. And so when you're doing stuff, you can make one little thing, one little mistake, and it can be your legacy. And so I hate that a little bit of my legacy will always be a stupid misstep or two I made along the way. Such is life. And I say that so that people listening to this can think twice before you do something dumb.
So you shared that was 15 years ago. So how
It was more. It's 2005 is actually when I got pulled
20
for
years
speed.
ago. 20 years ago.
It's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, but that legacy, it's left on. So that's one of the biggest regrets I have.
So how do you overcome that blemish? How do you make it
I think
brighter?
you just got to keep on doing your thing and hope that other things you do in life. I mean, I hope my kids will be my biggest legacy. I met someone at 49 that was my dream come true, and I've married her, and I hope that not only being a father but a husband, a loyal, devoted husband, that I really care more about what they think than anybody else. They're the ones I can truly influence a lot more, and I can leave them as people to carry on whatever we do in life. So I spend almost all my time with my family.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
We are a very close knit group. There's 3 sitting outside right now waiting on me to take them somewhere tonight. And so I got all the boys tonight. We're going to dinner and then going.
Well, we will be hurrying this up.
Oh, no, it doesn't
But
matter.
this-
And so, you keep on keeping on. And I kind of keep my head down. I don't try to get PR. I don't try to get news. I even, a lot of people have to have gratification through fancy cars or flexing. And there has been my thing. Even when I meet contractors and stuff, I try to drive the old car and just tone it down because I don't want them to think that I think any more of myself. I try to treat everybody the same and try to be fair and reasonable. And I have been very blessed beyond my wildest dreams. And so you try to stay, a little bit humble because it can be very easy that, you get this image that, well, he thinks he's this because of. And I just thought, that ain't me.
So speaking of your kids, they'll be in their 20s soon. What advice would you give them or yourself if you were in your 20s?
So I'm hard on them every day. I've had a handful of friends who've lost their children to fentanyl in the last couple of years. And so I am really, really, I'm lecturing them all the time about it's very easy to get caught in this trap, peer pressure, people talking you into stuff. Have a backbone, stand up, don't do it. It can change your life like that. And so we're all big on physics. I saw your gym when I walked in. We're health nuts. We eat super clean.
Nice.
We try to do something every day, physical fitness, down to even stuff. I'm 56 now. I go and do yoga with my wife because I'm getting a little, stuff's getting a little, so we've made it a priority in our life to really worry about our spiritual wellness, our physical wellness, and our financial wellness. And those are the things that we consider first and foremost. And so when we vacation together. Everything we do as a close-knit group because as long as I can have an influence on them, and we're talking about college now, and the oldest one is talking about still living with us while she's in college, and we're talking about business plan, and I've already started them investment accounts that the dividend gets rolled back in, and they either can use it for a house or a business, and that's it.
Wow. Nice.
And so they're getting to watch their numbers grow each year. And I gave them an option a long time ago when I started paying them for doing chores. If you save it, I'll double it. If you spend it, you're out of it.
Wow.
And so since the 3 stepchildren came into my life, I don't think they ever spent a paycheck I gave them. I always wrote them a check because I wanted them to get the check. I wanted them to sign the back because it's real easy to make decisions when you're signing. Somebody else is signing the check.
Right.
But when you're signing the check, all of a sudden it's a whole different animal. And so in government, it's easy for these people to give somebody else's money away. I was always stingy like I was my own money. I was not going to give away the taxpayer's dollar without thoroughly vetting what it was being spent on.
Wow.
And I wanted to be able to defend it. So that's kind of what I'm trying to put on them.
Yeah.
That's great. And as someone that has lived in South Carolina your whole entire life, you've seen it grow and change. There are people coming here from all over the place. So what do you see in the future of this state, and specifically Greenville, which is home to us? How do you see Greenville growing, and how do we manage that growth?
I don't know that we're managing the growth. The growth is all over. I would like to have a conversation with somebody to tell me, because I'm not sure we're managing the growth. However, that being said, when I look at Greenville as a whole compared to, and I've lived in several other cities in South Carolina, the traffic for the size of the city actually is more well laid out than a lot of the other cities in South Carolina. So there are some great, look, Greenville, there's a reason why people are moving here. We can pontificate and talk about some of the bad things, but there's a lot of amazing things. I mean, look, I chose to live in Greenville. I wanted to live in Greenville. I'm excited about living in Greenville, and we're building our dream home right now in Greenville. And so we're very impressed with what's going on. I had a lunch 2 weeks ago with one of the members of county council, and we're talking about some of the stuff that's going on. And when you look at things that have been revitalization, like the Swamp Rabbit Trail or the new park, I was with Velda Hughes last year and trying to help her finish her goal of getting that thing finished. And she's talked about her journey and how she'd like to see that finished, and went to the ribbon cutting ceremony a couple of months ago to see the park get finished. I mean, there's a lot of special things going on in Greenville, and it's one of the best places in the country to move. I mean, we're seeing that, and you're seeing it all over. When I bought that property in Landrum two years ago, it was kind of still quiet. You know, now D.R. Horton's out there. I mean, everybody's figured it out. The big boys are figuring out.
That's right.
Well, cool. Well, former Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for joining us. We know you have WrestleMania to get to. So, thank you.